In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a Kumihimo disc in order to do a 12-strand Kumihimo braid to make this beautiful leather bracelet. So let's quickly go over the list of products that you'll need in order to create this project. You're going to need 2 packages of synthetic 1mm pleather cording. This is item number PL1001. This pleather cord is then cut down into 6 30-inch lengths of cording. The reason for this length is because I'm going to be making a bracelet that's about 7 inches long. Now typically instructions will tell you to always measure about 2.5 times what your finished length is going to be. That will give you the amount that you need for your cording. However, I also like to have a couple of extra inches for the front part of my bracelet and for the back part of my bracelet. You're also going to need a Kumihimo disc. We sell 2 different types of Kumihimo disc, one that is 4¼ inches and one that's 6 inches. I like the one that's 4¼ inches because it fits my hand much better. This is item number KB425. You're also going to need a bit of scrap wire. This is 24 gauge wire, item number NT224, and you're not going to need too much of it. I'd say maybe 3 to 4 inches should be sufficient. I'm also going to be using a base metal toggle clasp. This is item number CL2510. You're going to need 2 end caps, and these are 6 millimeters in diameter, item number CA603. You'll also need 5 4mm jump rings in a silver color. This is item number JR200. To secure your end caps at the beginning and the end of your bracelet, you're also going to need some type of glue. I prefer E6000, and we sell this in a pretty small little tube, and it's item number GL118. Besides having your Kumihimo disc, you will also need a couple of pliers in order to create your bracelet. Have a pair of round nose and chain nose pliers, as well as a pair of side cutters or scissors if you like. All product numbers will be listed again at the end of this video. You'll begin your project by taking your 6 30-inch lengths of cording and folding them over on themselves right here in the middle. Measure up about 3/4 inch or a thumb's length away from the end of the cord, and then take a bit of your scrap wire and wrap it around your cording about 2 to 3 times. Snip the wire off, and then use your chain nose pliers to tuck the end into the wrapping. Okay, so now that we have that taken care of, we're going to pick up our Kumihimo disc and make sure that the numbers are faced towards you and that the 32 or the north point on your disc is facing up. Take the folded part of your cording and go through the center of your disc just like so. You're going to take 2 cords and you're going to stick them on either side of the 32 or north dot on your Kumihimo disc. Your next 2 cords will go here on either side of the 4 or northeast point. Your next 2 cords will go on either side of the 12 or the southeast mark on your Kumihimo disc. Your next 2 cords are going to go on either side of the 28 mark on your disc or the northwest corner. The next 2 cords will go on the 20 mark of your Kumihimo disc or the southwest corner. And your final 2 cords will go on either side of the 16 mark or the south mark. Pull on each of the cords that are set in the disc itself. You want to make sure that all of your cording is tight as you're braiding. Now, just because we're doing a 12-strand braid doesn't mean that we need to deviate from what you would do for an 8-strand braid. The same directions follow. Left up, right down, turn. So I'll demonstrate that right now. Over here at the 16 point on our disc, pick the lower left cord and bring it up. So now it's sitting between the 31 and the 30 mark on your disc. Take the cording from the right and bring it down. So now it's between the 14 and the 15 mark on your disc. Turn. You can turn your disc to the left or right as long as it's consistent. And repeat this again. Left up, right down, and make sure everything's nice and tight as you're doing this. Turn. Now you'll note there that I removed my hand from the back of the disc. That's okay. When we're beginning our braiding, it's okay to remove your hand and reposition it as need be. You'll note that I'm keeping the tension right here with the thumb on my dominant hand. So I'm grabbing the disc again, and I'm continuing on. The only thing that might get a bit confusing as you're doing this is that you now have 4 more strands added to the mix. So always make sure that when you're doing your turning, you're addressing the set that's up here at the top. Don't get so concerned with what's going on down here at the bottom. As you're doing your braiding, every once in a while your cording might bunch up, and so you might have 3 or 4 strands that are together. Oh man, well which one do I have to do? Always make sure that you pay attention to the one that's up here on top, and you can also use your cording that's here in the center of your disc as a guide. So as you see, I've got this left cord and this right cord sitting on top of all the other cords. I know that this is the one that I did last, so I'm going to turn and then do the next set. Like so. Hold. Turn. Left up, right down, turn. Remember, we're going with the very top one. Don't worry about what's down here at the bottom. Let the top part of your braiding be your guide. And every once in a while when you're doing this braiding, take note that all of your cords are nice and tight. This is very important. You want to try to keep it as nice and consistent throughout the entire braid as you possibly can. Now another thing to remember is, let's say you're braiding and you need to stop for a minute. Take note of the very last cord that you did. The last cord, remember, will be on the right side. Left up, right down, turn. So the right cord is going to be the last one that you did. I like to do it this way. I'll take the last cord that I did and I bring it back up through the top like so. Then I can set my disc down, and when I come back and I pick my disc up, I know where I left off. So continue doing your braiding until you've reached your desired length. I'm going to test it at about 6.5 inches. Remember, you need to leave some spacing for your end caps, the jump rings, and the clasp. One thing to consider when you're finishing up with your braiding is the fact that you might have some cord lengths that are much shorter than others. This is natural and normal. Don't freak out about it. It's because you use this cord in your braiding a bit more often than you use this one. It's nothing to really get too concerned about, but make sure that you try to keep that in mind when you are calculating how much cording you need. And this is exactly why I like to add a couple extra inches to my cording regardless of what the directions say. So as I'm done here, I'm going to switch the holding of my disc from my non-dominant hand now to my dominant hand. What I need to do is reposition my holding because I want to take that second piece of scrap wire and wrap it right around my braiding about here. So bring out that small amount of scrap wire. I'm going to go back to my non-dominant hand and pinch and give a very slight, about 1/4 inch turn to my braiding. And then I'm going to pull some of my cording out. I'm not going to pull it out all the way. I'm going to take my scrap piece of wire and I'm going to get as close as I can possibly get to my braiding. Then I'm going to wrap that piece of wire around that braiding about 2 to 3 times. And again, just like we did on the first half, take your side cutters or your scissors and snip off the ends of the wire. Now you can tuck the tails in if you want to with your chain nose pliers. It really doesn't matter too much because we're only leaving this wire on temporarily here on this end. Okay, now I can continue to pull the rest of my cording out and I can set my disc aside. So this is what we're left with. So we've got a loop on one end and we've got some extra cording on the other end. Well, we don't need these extra inches of pleather cording anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about a thumb's length away from where I did my wire wrapping. Now when you're done with that, you can get rid of these pleather cording tips. You don't need that anymore. So here I have the very end of my bracelet. I have about a 1/4 inch left of pleather cording and I have my 6mm end cap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the end cap up to where the end of my wire wrapping is at. So I can see that I need to trim off another couple millimeters off the end of my pleather cording. And then double check your measurements. Now what we're going to do is take some of your E6000 and you want to squirt just a tiny bit into the end of the end cap. You don't want to fill the entire end cap up with glue. 2 things will happen if you do that. Number 1, you're going to get glue everywhere when you put this pleather end into it. And number 2, the glue will never dry completely. So squirt a bit in there and make sure that kind of have it around the inside perimeter of that end cap, and when you stick the pleather cording in there, you can swirl the pleather cording around to make sure that everything is nice and coated. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is set the end cap down. With my finger, I'm going to unravel the first loop from my wire wrapping that I did. I don't want to unwrap this completely, but I do want to loosen it up. Then you're going to scoot the wire down just a hair. You want to make it so that when you put the end cap on, you can unwrap the wire quickly and then adjust the pleather cording inside the end cap. With your fingers, press all those pleather cording ends into the end cap. So we're going to press down and make sure that that glue and the pleather cording have both met up there at the very top of the end cap. With your fingers, unwrap the rest of that wire, and now I'm going to hold on to this end, hold on to my braiding like so, and then wiggle the rest of that wire out of there. Take your pleather cording and wiggle it around. Like I said, that's going to take the glue and coat the whole inside of the end cap as well as coat all the cord ends that are sitting there inside. If any glue happens to squeak out, simply take your thumbnail and just wipe it clean. Now you're going to repeat that for the other side of your bracelet and then double check something very quickly. Note how the loops are sitting on my bracelet. You want to make sure that both of them are facing the same way. So if you have to, go through and fine-tune everything while the glue is still drying. Now I'm going to allow my bracelet to sit and relax and cure for about 10 to 15 minutes. I want to make sure that that glue is completely dry before I move on to my next step. So now that my end caps are completely dry, I'm going to pick up one of these jump rings. And I'm going to use this to attach the bar half of the toggle clasp to one end of my bracelet. Okay, so that's one end of my bracelet taken care of. Now with the remaining 4 jump rings, what you're going to do is you're going to use one jump ring to attach to this loop on the other side of your bracelet, and then you're going to use 2 jump rings and then attach the next jump ring after that. And let me show you how that works. Okay, so I have my first jump ring attached. Now I'm going to take 2 jump rings and attach them the same way to that first jump ring. Notice how I have 2 jump rings now hanging off that first jump ring. Okay, and then with this last jump ring, what I'm going to do is attach that to the 2 jump rings as well as the circle part of my toggle clasp. And that's it. Again, this is project number B1081, our 12-strand Kumihimo bracelet.